My name is Shelley. I'm 26 years old, and I grew up in a small town outside Toowoomba where everybody knows your business before you even know it yourself. I worked at the local chemist, went to the same church every Sunday since I was in nappies, and I lived the kind of quiet, ordinary life where nothing dramatic ever really happened. Until it did. Until the Sunday morning my own mum stood up in front of our entire congregation and told me, loud enough for 3 pews to hear, that I was about to ruin my life by marrying a man who already had a kid. That was the moment everything changed, and I want you to know, I didn't cry, I didn't yell back. I just sat there, completely still, and made a decision inside my head that nobody in that room could see coming. Let me back it up a bit so you understand exactly how we got there. I met Jake at a servo on the edge of town on a Tuesday afternoon, when it was 41 degrees, and his little daughter Mia had chocolate ice cream absolutely everywhere. On her face, her shirt, somehow on the back of her neck, and he was trying to clean her up with a single serviette and failing spectacularly. He looked exhausted. He looked like a man who hadn't slept properly in about 2 years. And he looked like the most genuine person I'd ever seen in my entire life. We started talking, swapped numbers, and that was it. Within 3 months I knew this bloke was the one. He was kind and steady and real. And Mia, God, that little girl had already completely claimed a piece of my heart without even trying. She used to grab my hand when we crossed the road without being asked. 6 years old, and she just reached up and grabbed it like it was the most natural thing in the world. But my parents, my mum especially, never gave Jake a single real chance. From the very first Sunday dinner I brought him to, Mum had this look on her face like she was already calculating how badly this would end. She'd smile at him across the table, and then pull me into the kitchen and whisper things like, "Love, he comes with baggage, and you're young. You don't have to take on someone else's responsibility." Dad mostly stayed quiet, but he never once pulled Jake aside for a yarn the way he did with my cousin's boyfriend. He never once asked Jake about his work or his footy team, or any of the normal bloke stuff. He just tolerated him. And that tolerance had a quiet cruelty to it that Jake was too polite to ever mention. But I could see it wearing on him sometimes, late at night when he thought I wasn't watching. When Jake proposed, down on one knee in the backyard with Mia standing next to him holding the ring box because she absolutely insisted on being involved, I said yes before he even finished the sentence. I was so happy I couldn't breathe properly for about 4 days straight, but when I rang Mum that night, the first thing she said wasn't congratulations. The first thing she said was, "Shelley, are you absolutely sure?" And something in my chest went cold right then and there. The months that followed were the hardest of my life. Mum started working on extended family quietly, pulling cousins and aunties aside at barbecues, planting doubts. Dad told me privately that if I went ahead with it, he wasn't sure the family could support the decision. I kept thinking they'd come around. I kept thinking that once they saw how happy Jake made me, how safe I felt, how Mia and I had built something real, they'd come around. They didn't. Then came that Sunday, 3 weeks before the wedding. I walked into church, and before the service even started, Mum turned to the women sitting around us, women I'd known my whole life, and said loud and clear, "She's marrying a bloke with a kid. His ex left for a reason. Shelley just won't listen." And every single one of those women went quiet. Nobody disagreed. Nobody defended me. They just looked at their hands or at the stained glass or anywhere that wasn't my face. I sat in that pew and I felt something I hadn't expected to feel. Not hurt. Not even embarrassment. I felt absolutely certain. More certain than I'd ever been about anything. Because right then I thought about Mia reaching up for my hand at that crossing. And I knew exactly what I was going to do. And trust me, not one person in that room saw it coming. After that Sunday, I didn't argue with Mum. I didn't cry down the phone to Dad. I didn't send long angry texts or try to explain myself at the dinner table one more time. I just went completely quiet. And if you've ever been underestimated by someone who loves you, you'll know that quiet is sometimes the most powerful thing you can choose. Because while they were busy talking about me at their kitchen table, I was busy building something they couldn't touch. The first thing I did was ring my best mate, Carly. Carly had been my closest friend since year 7. She'd been a bridesmaid at her sister's wedding twice, And more importantly, she had a steady hand and a good eye, and she never once in her life put her phone down when something important was happening. I told her I needed her to film everything on the wedding day. Everything. Not just the ceremony, not just the first dance. Everything from the moment we arrived at the venue to the moment the last person left. She didn't ask why. She just said, "Already on it, Shell." That's the kind of mate Carly is. The second thing I did was talk to Jake, properly. I sat him down one evening after Mia had gone to bed, and I told him everything. What Mum had said at church, what Dad had told me privately, all the quiet damage that had been done over the months leading up to our wedding day. Jake sat there and listened without interrupting, which is one of the things I love most about him, and when I finished he just took my hand and said, "Shell, I've known for a while. I just didn't want to be the reason you lost your family," and that right there nearly broke me, because here was this man who had been swallowing that pain silently to protect me, and my parents had never once looked at him long enough to see it. Then came the idea. And it didn't come from me, it came from Mia. We were sitting at the kitchen table one afternoon doing craft. She was obsessed with making cards and signs and little paper decorations for the wedding, and she looked up at me with those big, serious eyes she has and said, "Shelley, can I carry something down the aisle? Like a special sign?" And I said, "Of course, baby, what do you want it to say?" And she thought about it for a really long time, chewing on the end of her texter the way she does. And then she told me, and I had to excuse myself and go to the bathroom because I didn't want her to see me fall apart. We didn't tell Jake what the sign said. We kept it between us, me and this 6-year-old kid who understood more about love and dignity than most adults I knew. Carly knew. That was it. The three of us. And every time I thought about my mum's face in that church pew, about those women going quiet, about my dad saying he wasn't sure the family could support my decision, I thought about that sign, sitting folded up in Mia's little bedroom, and I felt steady again. Now here's the part that makes my stomach drop even now when I think about it. 2 days before the wedding, Mum rang me. And I thought, finally she's going to say she's coming. Finally she's going to say she was wrong. Instead, she told me she and Dad had decided not to attend. She said it calmly, like she was telling me they couldn't make it to a barbecue. She said they loved me, but they couldn't stand up in front of the church and endorse a decision they believed was a mistake. And then she said, "One day you'll understand, Shelley." And she hung up. I put the phone down on the bench. I stood in my kitchen for a long time. Jake was in the next room and I didn't want him to hear me, so I kept my voice completely level when I walked in and told him. He looked at me and I looked at him. And neither of us said anything for a while. Then Mia padded in from her bedroom in her pajamas, climbed up onto the couch between us, and put one hand on each of our knees. 7-year-old wisdom. That. She didn't know what was wrong, but she knew we needed her there. The wedding morning came grey and warm the way Queensland mornings do in autumn. And I was ready, more ready than I had ever been for anything. Because what was about to happen in the aisle, nobody had prepared for. Not the guests, not the family members who did show up out of obligation, not a single soul in that room. Except a little girl with a handmade sign and the biggest heart I had ever known. The venue was a small white chapel about 20 minutes outside of town, the kind with timber floors and old wooden pews and big open windows that let the morning light pour straight in. About 60 people had shown up. Some were Jake's mates and his sister's family. Some were my cousins and a few aunties who decided to come regardless of what Mum had been whispering in their ears. And some were people who I honestly think came just to watch the whole thing fall apart. You know the type. They sit in the back pew and they fold their arms and they wait. I saw them when I pulled up. I noticed everything that morning with this strange, sharp clarity, like my whole body knew something enormous was about to happen, and it wanted me to remember every single detail. Jake was already inside. Carly was already positioned near the side wall with her phone ready, casual enough that nobody thought twice about it. And Mia, my girl, my brave, beautiful girl, was standing at the back of the chapel with me in her little white flower girl dress, holding her sign face down against her chest with both hands, the way we had practiced. She looked up at me before we started walking and she whispered, "Are you nervous, Shelley?" And I whispered back, "Not even a little bit, baby." and that was the truth. The music started, the doors opened, and we walked. Mia went first, 3 steps ahead of me the way we had arranged it. Slow and steady down the aisle, little white shoes on timber floors, signs still pressed against her chest so nobody could read it yet. I watched the faces of the people in those pews as she passed them. Polite smiles. A few soft awes from the women on Jake's side. The arm folders in the back row still waiting. Jake standing at the altar watching his daughter walk toward him with this expression on his face that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Like a man who had been through fire and couldn't quite believe he was standing somewhere warm and safe. Then Mia stopped. Right in the middle of the aisle, 4 rows from the front, she stopped walking. She turned around to face the entire congregation, and she flipped the sign around. It was written in texter, her own handwriting, big and uneven and completely perfect. And it said, "I'm not just gaining a mum." I already chose her first. For about 2 seconds the whole room was absolutely silent. And then it broke. Not politely, not quietly. It completely broke. Jake's sister put both hands over her mouth. One of my aunties let out this sound that wasn't quite a sob and wasn't quite a laugh, but was somehow both at once. The women on Jake's side were crying openly within seconds, proper crying, the kind you can't hold back. Even the arm folders in the back row. I watched one of them press his fist against his mouth and look at the ceiling. Carly had the phone steady on Mia the entire time, and I could see her own shoulders shaking from across the room. And Jake crouched down right there at the altar, opened his arms, and Mia ran the last 4 rows to him. He held her for a long moment with his face buried in her hair, and the whole room just let it happen. Nobody rushed it. Nobody made a sound. It was the most sacred 60 seconds I've ever stood inside. I walked the rest of the aisle alone, and I have never felt less alone in my entire life. We got married, simple and real, and exactly what it was supposed to be. Carly uploaded the footage that night. By the next morning, it had 2 million views. By the end of the second day, it had crossed 11 million. The comments were flooded with people saying they hadn't cried like that in years, strangers sharing it to their own families. People tagging their stepmums and their stepdads and their blended families with messages that said, "This is us. This is exactly us." Mum rang on the 3rd day. She didn't say much. She said she'd seen the video. She said she was sorry. I told her the door wasn't closed, but it wasn't wide open either, and that trust was something that got rebuilt slowly or not at all. She said she understood. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. That part is still being written. But what I know for certain, what that little girl with her texter sign taught an entire room full of adults, is that family was never about blood or approval or who showed up to the church. Family was about who chose you, who reached up and grabbed your hand without being asked, who wrote it down in big uneven letters and held it up for the whole world to see. Mia chose me first, and that is everything.